y'all, Dixie here. Today I want to do a little something different. I know some of y'all are members of the Homemade Wanderlust backpacking forum group on Facebook, and it's a pretty active community there. We have over 20,000 members now, and the other day I made a post in there and said, let's hear some of your silly questions, because I know when I started prepping for my AT thru-hike, which was also my first backpacking trip, I had a lot of questions, and I was a member of some of the groups on Facebook, but I felt kind of embarrassed to ask some questions, or like people would think I was stupid, or like, what are you doing going on a thru-hike if you don't even know the answer to this question? And so I know that there have to be other people who feel like that they want to start backpacking, or maybe they have questions to why we do things a certain way. And so I just kind of wanted to open the floor to allow people to ask some of those silly questions with, no judgment. And so anyway, they asked those there. And so today I'm going to share some of those with y'all, because I assume that if they had those questions, probably other people do too. And I want the community around this channel and the forum and just, everything Homemade Wanderlust to be welcoming of folks of all different backpacking experience, or maybe even people who just are starting to get into it, or even just starting to get interested in it. So these questions today are going to be kind of back to the basics. So let's go ahead and get started. Does the Guthook app work even if you don't have cell service? Just very curious how you navigate. Thanks and congrats on your Triple Crown. Just to back up a little bit, the Guthook app is an app that a lot of folks use on the AT, PCT, CDT, the T Araroa in New Zealand. It's just a very popular navigation app for some of these more popular long distance trails. You can get them in sections. So say you're just hiking in Colorado, you can get that piece of the app. It helps you navigate. It shows the profile elevation. It has a track in there of the trail, and you're able to comment on different waypoints like water sources, etc. So the question was, does that app work even when you don't have cell service? And yes, the Guthook app does not run off of cell towers. It operates through GPS. So even when your phone is off in airplane mode and you don't have cell service, you can use it just fine. Do people hook up on trail? And the answer to this, which I've had a lot of people ask this question, is anything that happens in real life can also happen on trail. I mean, in real life you have a bunch of humans, and on trail you have a bunch of humans. So yes, drugs, sex, rock and roll, all of those things, again, that happen in real life can happen on the trail. Also, like in real life, you can choose to participate in or opt out of any of those things. How do people who need daily medication get their prescriptions on trail? Has anyone successfully gotten their doctor to let them fill 6 months worth of prescriptions? I did not have personal experience because I didn't have any prescriptions to worry about, but other people helped out and said that yes, they were able to get their prescription through like a Walmart or a Walgreens, one of the bigger chain pharmacies, and they were able to at least once a month or so get to one of those bigger pharmacies and get their prescription filled. Some people did say they were able to talk to their doctor and let them know what was going on, what their plans were, why they needed the medication for 6 months. And it sounded like they had a talk with their insurance and had them do an override to go ahead and approve 6 months of medication. Are you supposed to put the plastic cap back on the fuel canister for your stove? I feel the answer is yes, but for some reason I feel the need to ask anyway. So this person is referring to when you get a fuel canister for your stove, if you are cooking with a stove, and you are cooking with canister fuel instead of denatured alcohol or some other form of fuel. So there's a little plastic cover that goes on top of that to cover the threads and down into the hole there where your stove connects. And the question is, do you have to keep that? Is it important? And the answer is, I guess it depends. So I do not keep mine. I mean, that's something I throw away before I leave town. It just hasn't been necessary. I haven't needed it. I think probably what happened is one time I lost one somewhere in the depths of my pack and decided, I don't need this. And so from then on, I just kind of tossed it. And, I'm one of those folks that trims my toothbrush to save weight and throws that cap away to save weight and gets upset if I find like a Starburst wrapper in my pocket from town or something, as if it's gonna really weigh down my pack. But then I'll carry an extra anchor charger so I have a lot of battery power. You know, it's all personal preference, and I know it doesn't save that much weight, but anyway, I like to toss mine. But I do keep my fuel can inside my food pot and my stove and all of that in there to kind of help protect it while I'm hiking. But I think the main purpose of that cap probably is to protect the threads from getting messed up so that your stove won't stop threading on there properly. And then also to kind of protect anything, dust, debris, gravel, from getting down in the little hole on the top of it, because that could also mess it up or cause potentially fuel to spew out and whatnot. So it's definitely not a bad idea to keep it, but personally I do not, and I won't say that it's absolutely necessary. It's not like your fuel is just gonna magically leak out of there because you don't have that plastic cap. What kind of footprint do I use under my tent? Do I just cut a tarp to size? My suggestion for this one is see if your tent manufacturer has a pre-cut footprint made just for your tent. So for example, with the Big Agnes Fly Creek UL2 that I carried on the AT, they did sell a footprint made for that tent. What I ended up doing, because it was a much cheaper route, is I bought a piece of Tyvek that was big enough to fit under the body of my tent. So you want to cut it so it does not hang out the sides, because if you think about it, when the rain's falling, golly, in my eyeball, whew, suicidal gnat. If the rain falls onto the Tyvek or whatever you're using for a footprint and goes under your tent, then you got this big old pool of water in between the waterproof Tyvek and the bottom of your tent. So I just cut it to where it was a little bit smaller, like a couple inches all the way around the perimeter of the body of the tent. Now, where do you get Tyvek? I bought mine at the outfitter where I got my tent. Now, some outfitters may not have it, but you can probably find it at hardware stores. And if you see a construction site, you could probably even roll up there and say, hey guys, do you have any extra pieces of Tyvek? That way you don't have to buy a big old bunch of it. And it's probably also online in certain pieces. And I know some people said that they have purchased it on Amazon. So there are several places where you can get it, but it's pretty lightweight and cheap. And it does make some crinkly noises, so I recommend washing it a couple of times before you use it. But the more you use it, the softer it'll get and the quieter it will also get. Next question is, new type of female underpants for special days. Tried or tested, yay or nay? Thank you, by the way, did not want to create a post about that. So this is in reference to period panties. So when ladies are menstruating, it's basically underwear that acts in place of a tampon or a pad. I do not have personal experience with this. I had thought about trying it on the CDT and even the PCT, just never got around to it. But other people chimed in the forum, and the consensus is basically if you have a heavy flow, it may not be the best line of defense of not making a mess, but it could potentially work for you as backup, or if you have low to moderate flow, it could be what you use in place of sanitary napkins, etc. Basically, what I gathered is for a day hike, it would be fine, again, if you have low to moderate flow, but as far as on an overnight trip, a weekend trip, a through hike, they tend to be a little bit heavy, and it seems that you would need several pair because you've got to rinse them and then wash them out and then allow them to dry after you've used them to, I guess, their max capacity or whatever the recommended time frame is for using them. I assume that would differ for each woman, but anyway, I think the idea of having to carry enough to wash and rinse out and then hang on your pack to dry, and then just the weight of them in general may not be the most convenient thing for an overnight backpacking trip. And then somebody else chimed in and said she loves them for day-to-day life, but as far as any kind of exercising, hiking, working out, she finds that when she sweats, they get kind of soaked with sweat. So she just didn't think that they were really that great for exercising in general, let alone backpacking. How do you find a place to camp for the night when backpacking and there isn't a designated camping spot? Do you just say, this area looks good? I know you need to be off the trail and in a flat, clear spot for a tent, but is there a rule as to where you can camp? So this is one of those questions that is not a one-size-fits-all answer. It really depends on where you're going to be backpacking. So if you're going out for a weekend somewhere local, a national forest or whatever, you can easily look that information up online, or when you get there, there's probably signage that tells you those requirements. Now, if you're going on a through hike and you're going to be going through different wilderness areas, national parks, national forests, there are going to be a whole lot of different rules. And the general rule of thumb is you want to be 200 feet from the trail and 200 feet from a water source. Now, any area that has specific rules, you're probably going to find a board with all of that information. At Shenandoah National Park, they don't require you, like at some other national parks, to camp in a specific area, at least while you're through hiking. But they do have very specific rules. For example, you have to be 10 yards away from streams and other water sources, 20 yards from the trail, and etc., etc. But when you walk in there, if you're through hiking, there's a little marquee that you fill out a little permit and throw it in the box, and it has a list of all of those rules on the back. So make sure you get to camp early and you can find a spot that meets all of those requirements. Is it difficult to use contacts on trail since your hands aren't always clean, or do you just Purell and rinse beforehand? I'm debating contacts or glasses. Now, Aaron carried contacts with him on the CDT and managed just fine, didn't get pink eye and his eye didn't rot out. What a lot of people do is they switch to the dailies if they're not already using them. Some people will carry a little bit of solution with them just in case. But yes, I think definitely cleaning your hands off as much as you can, whether it's with water or hand sanitizer, or you could probably even carry like a little bar of soap that you would get from a motel or something like that in a Ziploc bag. If you do decide to wear glasses, one of the downfalls of that is when it rains, apparently they fog up a lot. There were some people who suggested products for people who dive, and the anti-fog product to put on their goggles, and then also folks who ride motorcycles for their glasses. So there are some products out there that can help with some of the fogging issues. You might want to test that before you get out there just to see if it works out for you, because the last thing you want to do is be on the edge of a cliff with it pouring down rain and your glasses are all fogged up. But there are people who do successfully wear contacts and don't have any issues. Does anybody use earplugs? I keep hearing about the insanely loud wind that keeps people awake all night. Would earplugs help? I personally do not like to wear earplugs. I carried them on the Appalachian Trail for a little while and didn't on any of the other trails. I like to be able to hear what's going on at night. I like to know what's outside my tent. That's just a personal preference. Now, there are folks who definitely do use earplugs when they sleep. It helps them feel like they're in a little bubble and they, are in their tent and safe and sound and it's quiet and they like it. I will say I did wear earplugs a couple of times in the hostels on the Appalachian Trail. Sometimes you end up in a bunk room with people who snore, and my only saving grace was earplugs, and sometimes that didn't even really help that much. Also, if you're going to be on the AT in shelters with people, I think earplugs help. When I'm out in my tent and I hear somebody snoring in the distance, that doesn't really bother me so much. Just when you're in the echo chamber of a bunk room or a shelter, that's when I've really found them to come in handy. If I'm having my time of the month, am I more likely to attract animals? Mainly worried about while sleeping. The only thing I could really find as far as any research on this topic was bears, and are they attracted to women more when they're menstruating?
The bears can smell the menstruation. Well, that's just great.
From what I read, bears were not attracted to the scent of women menstruating any more than the scent of anything else. As far as grizzly bears go, the response to menstrual odors has not been studied experimentally. With black bears, they did do some studies, and apparently the black bears just ignored the scent of menstrual odors. And then they also looked at some of the different bear attacks that have occurred, and they looked into the ones that were women, were they menstruating or not, and they couldn't find any kind of link between women on their periods and being attacked by bears. With that said, there are some precautions that you can take, just in case, like wearing internal tampons instead of external pads. Use unscented feminine products and towelettes to clean yourself. Any of the used napkins or anything like that you want to store with your trash, and at night, hang it with your bear bag or however you store your food at night. I'll put a link to all of this information, the precautions and all of that in the video description if you'd like to read more. Are all hikers super brave about sleeping alone in huts and in the woods at night? Or are there more people out there like me who have severe anxiety about sleeping alone or around people you don't know / trust on trail? The first night I was on the Appalachian Trail in Springer Mountain Shelter, I slept on the top floor with a complete stranger. There were other people in the shelter down below, but I thought it was the strangest thing in the world to be in that place with all of those strange people, but especially the one guy that I shared the top floor with. I mean, it was just like, this is not normal. This is very strange. Now, fast forward to like New Jersey or New York. I had been night hiking one night and I got to this shelter at like 1 a.m. And yes, I know that that's not the greatest shelter etiquette, but I was very quiet sneaking up, and I remember seeing people asleep in there, and there was one opening, like one little sliver, you know, definitely enough space. It wasn't like I was cuddling up to somebody, but I laid my sleeping pad there and I kind of shimmied up in there, and I said, you know, we all kind of slept in there like a litter of puppies. And in the morning you wake up and it's like, oh, hey, Waldo, you know, oh, hey, so-and-so. And you end up knowing a lot of the folks because you've been hiking around them. And, you know, I remember thinking to myself that night, who am I? Like, who is this person that just shimmied up in here with a bunch of strangers and really didn't think much of it? But the truth is, that's just kind of how the trail works. And you do become more confident in yourself, and you do get to know the people around you, and you do realize that it's just kind of the way that the trail culture is. Now, on the Pacific Crest Trail and the Continental Divide Trail, there aren't as many shelters and things like that. So, you know, you're more or less like camping maybe near people in your tent, which is more private, and to me isn't as strange maybe for the first time. But anyway, no, everyone is not brave when they start out. I certainly was not brave. I was freaking out laying there the first night in Springer Mountain Shelter thinking, what have I gotten myself into? So it's totally normal to think it's strange to sleep around strangers, but it's strange how that later becomes totally normal. Underwear question. Wearing them one day right side out, next day inside out, doesn't it get your regular britches dirty? I wonder if it's worth the ounces to carry extra. Thoughts? I think this is in reference to me talking about how I wear my underwear one way, turn them inside out, wear them the other way, and then the third day I put on a new pair and wash the second pair and hang it on my pack to dry. So that system, you know, lasts me 4 days on 2 pair, but could more with doing some on-trail laundry. Anyway, to be honest, that it is kind of gross. And yes, I mean, the dirty side being on your shorts could get your shorts more dirty, but you're gonna have so much butt sweat that it's just really not gonna matter. And for me, I think it's more of a mental thing. So, you know, if it's worth it to you, this is something that's completely personal preference with almost everything in backpacking. You really just have to decide, is it worth it to you to be able to put on a clean pair of underwear every day? For me, it's not. For you, it definitely might be, and that's okay. Ooh, butt sweat questions. What about preventing chafing and wearing breathable pants? How do you keep the balance between butt breathing and keeping your legs warm? All right, so my first thought on this is most athletic clothing is going to be designed to wick away sweat and be breathable. But in the summertime, I'm wearing shorts. Some people wear pants. Again, most of it's designed to breathe. Now, in the colder months, I'm going to be sweating a lot less. So, you know, I kind of feel like as far as how you keep yourself warm and not sweat too much, that kind of comes with the temperature. If you are pouring sweat, then take a layer off, you know, and you'll cool off. As far as chafing goes, it's kind of like getting blisters. When you notice that there's a problem starting, you need to go ahead and nip it in the bud. Basically, make sure that your clothing fits properly. You can try some breeches, or, you know, wherever you're chafing, you can try clothing that doesn't have as many seams. You want to try to keep the area as clean as possible, and then you can do things to reduce friction, like wear body glide or use cornstarch, just something to where that skin on skin or clothing on skin friction is reduced. At night, if it's warmer, you can try to let everything air out while you sleep. Some people have even used diaper rash ointment. And all in all, when it comes down to it, if it's continuing to get worse, you know, you may just have to try swapping up your clothes, try going commando or different underwear, or it may boil down to you just need to take a day or so off in town and just let it heal up. I know we have a lot of varying degrees of backpacking experience, all the way from hadn't done it yet to, you know, hiked thousands and thousands of miles. So if you have something that might help out one of the people who ask these questions, or if you have a silly question that you would like to ask yourself, please feel free to leave that in the comments below. And I hope that everybody feels welcome and we can all try to help each other out a little bit. But thank y'all so much for watching, and we will see y'all next time.